His mind started wandering, and his eyes grew heavy. Suddenly he was drifting over a large field where two little boys, one with dark hair and the other fair, played. He'd seen these two children several times in recent years after falling asleep. The boys were running around kicking a ball, oblivious to a hooded figure standing at the edge of a distant forest. Beside the cloaked individual was a young man dressed in 19th century attire of a peasant or slave. As Cletus drew closer, he could see the young man's dark complexion and wavy black hair that reached the collar of his shirt. He was certain kingship, and after getting close enough to see his features, knew who he was. Nikolai. Cletus could place some physical resemblance between the Romany slave and Dorothy's friend Jimmy. When he turned back round towards the little boys, they vanished before his eyes, and the scene shifted from day into night. The field around him disappeared, and Cletus found himself on a dark, deserted road. Up ahead was a sign. He ran towards it, the balmy wind blowing back his clothes and hair. His steps slowed as if a cold, rough pavement was beneath his feet. The moon illuminated the street sign, specifically casting its glow for the young man to read the letters etched into the wood. Hunter's Highway. Above the sign, two connected arrows pointed in directions opposing one another. The top one, Redstone Creek, and the bottom, Pine Woods. Both towns were about 25 miles from where he stood. He gasped at the familiarity of the town names and felt a draw towards the latter, but when his eyes snapped open, he was back on the couch in his apartment. He turned back round to face the window, and his insides jolted upon seeing a face appear just outside the glass pane. He shot up, only to have the shape vanish. Cletus tried forming an irrational explanation for what he saw, but it was a futile attempt. Chills enveloped his body, and he glanced around the dark room. Faint whispers seeped in through the walls. Frozen to where he sat, he tried making out what was being said, but the words proved inaudible. As his body gained mobility, he considered heading to Reginald's and Gail's bedroom, but couldn't move quick enough, as though he was fighting his way through quicksand. Eventually, the whispers faded out, and the air was overtaken by the distant sound of a piano playing a familiar piece by the composer Debussy, the Song to the Moon. To his release, Cletus' movements became more fluid, and he was able to rise from the couch, flinching when his foot touched icy wood floor. His eyes darted about and breath hitched when he saw the property of Fleming Orphanage surrounding him. The summer breeze turned into a crisp autumn chill as the song flowed from the wind that carried it. Leaves fell from their branches, blanketing the ground, seemingly to undulate with the notes being played. He was compelled towards the woods, feeling Dorothy's presence and the grave danger she was in by being there. Confused and disorientated, he looked around, calling out to her, but she was nowhere to sight. His voice was getting lost in the wind, stirring up as it carried the bus's song. The woods and empty buildings of the former orphanage took on menacing shapes, as if they were alive and mocking him. Every fibre of his being wrenched when he heard a distant howling from somewhere in the woods. His breath grew rapid and his lungs took in the icy air. The song to the moon faded, and the sound of someone humming another familiar tune took over. All the pretty little horses. Cletus tried moving in the direction of the hill, knowing that it would take him away from the property, but the wind increased to strength, and invisible arms seemed to hold him back. He heard the howling again, only this time it was much closer, sounding unlike any animal he knew of. A foul stench started crawling out of the buildings as the windows radiated a deep, red glow, like blood. The glow pulsed, spreading through the property as the stench of death engulfed him. His body stiffened upon hearing a bloodthirsty growl closing in behind him. He tried to run, but his feet were planted to the earth. He could sense it inching closer, crunching over the cold, drying leaves. The creature's rancid breath assaulted his nostrils before it let out a deafening roar. Then the creature pounced, pummeling the young man forward.